If you hurt someone in an accident and they decide to sue you, if you have your state recommended $250,000 per person liability limit, that's gone in just about an instant. If somebody actually wants to come back because you have hurt somebody, that 250 is the starting point in most cases. So that's why for that extra 150, couple $100 a year, having that additional limit of liability going from $500,000 to $1.5 million, it just goes an incredible way in protecting you and your asset.
Hi, Andrew and Jose from Koop Burr Insurance. How are you today?
Great. How are you, Phil?
Fantastic. Good. Fantastic. Koop Burr Insurance, along with Fremont Mutual, is one of my lead sponsors for Keys in the Community podcast. And so we're excited to have them on and very thankful for their support. So thank you, guys.
Of course.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah, you bet. Koop Burr Insurance. Who are you? What's going on? Who do you represent? What do we need to know?
Yeah. So I'm Andrew Koop. This is a third generation for me in the family business. The agency, Koop Burr Insurance, we've been here in Holland. We're not too far away from the South Side Mire, but we've been around since my grandpa started the agency in 1952. So my grandpa started the agency, my dad took over, and now I have owned it for the past 2 years. We are an independent agency, so we work with a bunch of different carriers for both personal lines and for business insurance. And Fremont is one of our strongest carriers. Fremont is actually celebrating their 150th anniversary this year, and they are a Michigan-based carrier based up in Fremont, Michigan. So out of all the carriers we work with, they are one of the smaller ones, but they're a phenomenal partner for us and what we do here at the agency. Their big focus is what they call the Fremont family. And that really aligns with our values as an agency and what we want to do with the community, because community and family is one of their biggest goals and what they strive to be as an insurance carrier.
Great. So, Jose, how long have you been with Koop Burr and in the industry?
Sure. Well, this is going on my 10th year with Koop Burr Insurance. I've been in the industry now for 24 years total. And yeah, so I started off 24 years ago just doing home and auto and life. And then over the years, came to the independent insurance world. And so the last 10 years have been great here at Koop Burr. And this would be the place where I retire, hopefully. And yeah, just make a lot of great memories. And it's been a great opportunity to just kind of grow our book of business.
Great. So let's talk about a little insurance, your area of expertise for both of you. So you have my homeowners insured through Fremont Mutual. And in the real estate transaction, I sell my house, but I'm going to stay there for a week or two before I move into my new house. And so I have stuff at my new house that I'm moving in, but I have my other things at my current house. How does that all work? How am I insured or not insured, or what do I need to be aware of?
That's a fantastic question. It's something that happens on a regular basis. Most real estate transactions, there's some kind of not an immediate move. A lot of it depends on the carrier, but in most cases, once you have a new homeowner's policy in place, right? You bought a new house and then you're selling your current one. The policy for your new home will extend the contents coverage over to the home that you're selling. So on a temporary basis, that new policy will cover the contents at your existing location.
Okay, great. And what about when the movers slip down my new stairs when they're putting in my piano in the basement?
That can depend on a couple of things. It depends obviously on the contract with your movers. Sometimes they may have to take responsibility for those things. At the end of the day, your general appliances, furniture, and things that you have in the house, those would be covered obviously for replacement costs. However, if you do happen to have a grand piano or something of higher value, those are things that should be scheduled, because at the end of the day, those higher end items, should they be damaged in a move or third claim in the home, if they're not scheduled for their exact value, you could end up with a problem, or you would just get kind of what we call actual cash value. So if it's worth $50,000 at the end of the day, if it breaks or gets dropped during the move, They can say you don't have it scheduled, so it's just a piano to us. Actual cash value usually doesn't equate to its true value. So those are things with higher end items such as pianos, depends on what it is. We should have those scheduled so you get its true value should something happen and should it fall under you.
And when it's scheduled too, it also broadens the amount of coverage that you have for something. For example, having a wedding ring, right? If it is not scheduled and it falls off your finger, or we've paid claims where a customer, just the diamond falls off, but the ring's still on their finger, loss, losing something, even a partial loss like losing the diamond is not covered unless it is scheduled. So scheduling something provides additional coverage and broadens the coverage for those items.
So I'm moving to my new house, but I'm in my current house, but I don't own it anymore because we closed on it last week, Friday. Who's responsible for that in the event that property, my current house, until I move out in terms of fire, if the pipes freeze or whatever it may be?
If you have sold the house, the contract's been done, the new owners of the unit or that policy is responsible for the dwelling itself or the interior of the condo. Condominiums are unique just because of the fact that usually a condo unit owner policy, you are responsible for your contents and usually the interior of the structure. The association takes responsibility for the shell, exterior, roof, common areas, but the interior, usually drywall in, sometimes paint in, depending on the bylaws that are written. That's going to be covered by the unit owner. So again, if you sold it and you're moving out, but you're temporarily there until whatever the agreement was in the contract, the new owner's policy would be responsible for any damage to that unit.
Okay. That's a question that
and that's just a general premise for any insurance, whether it's a home, condo, auto, anything else like that, is if you don't own it, you can't insure it. Just like with that scenario, or if you can't insure someone else's vehicle for them if you don't own it. So if they own it, you can't insure it. Same thing applies to a real estate transaction like this.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I just had an interesting thing happen. I helped some people to acquire a condominium, and they were living in their current house and so on, and they were getting ready for closing and called their particular insurance agent and said, we're moving to this condo. And the agent came back to him, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but said, you're going to need like $1,000 of coverage or something. And they called me and they said, does that sound right? And I said, I'm not an insurance agent. So what I would do is make sure they have the bylaws. And so they did. And that particular agent said, yeah, 300,000. They gave those bylaws to a different agent. And he said, what you just said, Jose, was you're really only responsible for the drywall in. So we need to worry about that. And then your stuff, your furniture, that kind of thing. That's the direction they ended up going. And it was a lot less coverage, but a lot less premium, but they didn't need whatever the number was, $400,000 of coverage. Do you guys see that as confusing sometimes to people?
Yeah. And most of that all depends on the actual association bylaws. Every condo association is different. And while there are some general principles that most bylaws follow as far as insurance goes, a lot of them take their own separate paths sometimes. So we have seen bylaws of everything from, hey, if there's a claim and it needs to be rebuilt, the association is responsible to rebuild the unit up to the drywall. And then the unit owner is responsible for everything in from cabinets, fixtures, flooring, paint, everything else inside of that unit. We have also seen bylaws are pretty common where it says the association is responsible to rebuild the unit to its original condition, meaning they go past the drywall, they build out the unit, but then the unit owner would be responsible for any improvements and betterments. So they have upgraded flooring, carpet, cabinets, countertops, anything that was changed or is above whatever that base level as it was originally sold, then the unit owner is responsible for. So from condo association to condo association, because those bylaws differ, it's really important for us to always actually get a copy of that and review those to determine what that coverage needs to be, because the more the association covers, the less the customer needs to.
Yeah.
So it really varies from unit to unit. but that's something that we always take a look at those bylaws and then just have to go through and assess. And depending on the condo, if it's a more basic condo, then you may not need as much coverage as something that's, custom deluxe, high-end furniture and finishes, things like that. So it really depends on the unit itself.
Yeah, one of them makes a lot of sense.
One of the things I'll chime in on this too, the bylaws are unique. And one of the things I always suggest is, first of all, hey, ask your board if they know some of these small details, whether it's homeowners or condo association, just because, again, bylaws are different for all kinds of reasons. But one of the things I've also said for some of these associations that we work with is if the board isn't 100% familiar, we can read these documents ourselves and break apart the insurance aspect. But one of the things I tell associations, HOAs to do as well is contact your legal counsel and get a better understanding on that, because I've seen some things lately with HOA and misunderstanding of how a board reads a set of bylaws. The verbiage isn't always the clearest. And sometimes you do need some legal representation just to help you break the verbiage up in there to make sure you have the clear understanding, because it can lead to some issues. So that's always a suggestion is, hey, ask the board if they're aware of how this works, especially for condos. We're responsible for the paint in, drywall in. Sometimes on rare occasions, the condo association takes over everything. And for HOA, for homeowners, same thing. Big thing now is, do you allow renters in your association? Can you just build a fence anytime, any kind of fence you want? Are certain dogs allowed in your neighborhood? All those little things. Again, if the board isn't aware, I say, hey, ask for a meeting, or you just have that HOA review with their legal representation to make sure everyone has the same clear understanding on all.
Yeah, very good. I had someone ask me the other day, they were, there's someone we do business with on a regular basis, and she asked me, she didn't know what the name of it was, but she said, hey, our agent is suggesting that we have this extra liability. We've got teenage drivers now and stuff, and this extra liability. What the heck are they talking about? And why would I need that? And I said, you're probably talking about an umbrella, is my guess. And she said, I think that's maybe what they called it. And I said, again, not an insurance agent, but I would think the more liability you can get, the better. Is that, again, I can't give advice. I'm not an agent. But is that...
Absolutely. Yeah. Umbrella liability policy, it's kind of, the umbrella says it all in theory, right? So it goes above and beyond your current limits of liability for your auto, for your homeowners, if you have motorcycles, watercraft, all those kind of fun toys potentially. If you have limits of liability on the auto policy that are $500,000, or your homeowners at $500,000, and you buy an umbrella, they all start at $1 million. Then in theory, something were to happen with youthful drivers, an accident occurred, damage occurred at your property to someone that doesn't live there, and the lawsuit came. Instead of having the $500,000 limit liability, you would now have 1.5 limits for liability. And umbrellas, again, different needs. We look at, obviously, youthful drivers is an important thing, but it also helps protect your assets, the future assets. So we have to do kind of a deeper dive into what limit should you choose for an umbrella policy. But yeah, if we bring it up to everybody and just kind of a quick explanation, again, it just goes above and beyond your current limits of liability for additional protection. And at the end of the day, the premiums can start at about $150, I believe, somewhere in that area, and go up, just depends on how much you need. And again, the increments are all $1 million increments for the umbrella policies.
So $150 a month?
A year, sorry.
A year. Oh, wow. Okay.
And oftentimes, depending on the carrier, you will get discounts on your auto and on your home policies for having that umbrella. So even if the premium is higher than that, by the time you factor in those discounts versus the cost of the umbrella, in most cases, it takes a good chunk of that cost away. So even if you look at an umbrella and go, I've got 4 vehicles, 2 youthful drivers, okay, that may be a $350 umbrella, but if you save $200 in discounts for the auto and the home, now that net cost out of pocket's only $150, and that's not so bad. And especially when you look at liability limits on an auto or home policy. I mean, in the state of Michigan, the recommended liability limit on an auto policy is $250,000 per person. In most cases, there are a lot of agencies out there that will write, $300,000 on a home. In most cases, our agency standard is $1 million. But if using the auto for an example, if you hurt someone in an accident and they decide to sue you, if you have your state recommended 250,000 per person liability limit, that's gone in just about an instant. If somebody actually wants to come back because you have hurt somebody, that 250 is the starting point in most cases. So that's why for that extra 150, couple $100 a year, having that additional limit of liability going from, $500,000 to $1.5 million, it just goes an incredible way in protecting you and your assets.
And $150 to $200 a year, shoot, that's one night out with Jose. That's nothing.
Possibly. That's kind of what we're doing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I know you can give me broad brush, but one thing I've run into that I see often is they've been able to save up enough money. They're going to move from their apartment that they're renting to a condominium or a house, that sort of thing. But I find so many times that when they are renters, when they're renting, they do not have any coverage at all. They don't insure themselves. If an umbrella policy is $150, $200, whatever it is a year, I can't imagine a renter's policy being very expensive.
In most cases, a renter's policy is about $150 a year too, depending
And what
on
would
how
that cover
much.
them for?
So that's going to cover their contents. So any belongings they have inside of their apartment or condo or house, whatever they're renting. Liability is a big part of that coverage too. So if something happens and somebody does try to sue, then you have the coverage for that too. But the two biggest parts of a renter's policy are the contents and the liability.
So if I'm living in a 3-4 story apartment unit and the pipes freeze in the unit above me and all comes crashing down on my stuff and ruins my things, that's what it would cover that.
Yeah, it would cover the contents, right? So clothing, furniture, appliances, dishes. The structure itself is part of the apartment complex's issue on it. But yeah. And sometimes from a liability perspective, the reason it's so important is an example many years ago, but let's say you left for the winter and left the unattended and turned the heat off for some reason, or left it too cold and the water line burst. That could be negligence, right, on that unit owner. You left the iron plugged in, left the candle burning, leave, and it tips over, or cat tips it over, and now you cause a major fire or other damage. Those are potential negligence issues for that person. And that's why liability is important, because should something happen, that liability helps cover that negligence.
Yeah. Okay. One more question on insurance. Then we got to get into some other things related to the community. But
Sure.
From time to time, we'll run into this with home inspections, or just because clients will call and say, oh, you're not going to believe what happened, or I'll be doing my regular check-in calls with clients and they'll tell me they have water in the basement. And it's always amazing, the stories I hear and what's covered, what's not covered, that kind of thing. I'm sure you can tell me some pretty interesting horror stories, but how does that all work with water in the basement?
The first question that we always ask is, where did it come from? Because there's some water in the basement that is covered and there is some that is not. Any standard homeowners, condo renters policy excludes flood, and flood is considered any water from the outside that comes in, whether that's through a crack in the foundation or whether that's, the water's high and it comes through a door or a window or anything else like that. So flood is going to be an excluded coverage unless you have a specific flood policy. Any water from the inside, generally speaking, is covered, but again, it can often depend on what the source is. Using that frozen pipe example, if you're away from the winter and turned your home down to 40 degrees and the pipe froze, then it may not be covered because you turned the home down to 40 degrees and that is an unsafe temperature to keep the home. But if it's other examples where there was just a pipe that broke or there's something else that happened leading to water, we've seen water heaters decay and break over time. And now all of a sudden somebody's got 100 gallons of water in their basement. Things like that are covered.
Interesting.
I think the most common things, for example, in the last probably few months, we did have a client where that a home and the furnace had a malfunction. And unfortunately it was a day when it was 20 20 degrees. It was pretty cold.
Of course,
And
that's
so
what's
what-
going to happen.
Yeah, of course. And so what happened that day is obviously no heat in the house. So water line did break on the second floor, causing damage, second floor, first floor, and lower levels. That instance there was no negligence, nothing intentional. So therefore that was covered. I can speak on my behalf. I believe it was last year. I got home from a sporting event and one of the kids said, "Hey, there's water on the floor." And I'm thinking, oh, someone left something going. So I went downstairs and there was just unique water spots. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And so I went into the restroom downstairs, no water issues there. And I went to the storage room, and the most common thing we find are sump pumps that fail. And mine unfortunately fails. Therefore, just to give you an example, $14,000 later worth of damage by the time you do carpet and some drywall, Serve Pro to go out there, just throw a plug out there, and do all the dried equipment to dry everything else correctly, take out the damaged property. That's probably the most common thing we see are sump pump failure. And again, on a homeowners and a condo, and even some renters policies, sump pump coverage, sump pump or drain backup. Those are things that need to be added to a policy. They don't just come with a policy. Clear message. If you're home, renters or condo, water backup coverage is important. It doesn't just come with the policy. Some offer it as an endorsement just right away. But most time, please ask for those questions. Ask your agent to add that if it's on there. It is crucial. And you can't choose different limits to help cover it depending on the finish of your lower level or whatever you may be looking at.
Okay, awesome. So communicate with your insurance agent.
Yes. Yes. And if you're not sure, ask questions. That's one of my favorite parts of the job, honestly, is making sure customers are informed. Because in my eyes, if I sell something to a customer and they don't know what they're getting, I haven't done my job the right way. So I'm happy to have coverage conversations with customers. And that's something we do focus on as an agency level too, because it's really important to us that people know what they're getting. So it's not just a mystery of, assuming they have it or thinking, oh, it doesn't exist, because let's have a conversation about it. Hey, if something happens, how does this apply? Do I have coverage for this? It's much easier to have those conversations before something happens rather than to have something happen and either not have enough coverage or not have coverage at all. Or sometimes there's things that people don't think are covered, but they are. And so having all those conversations up front just saves a lot of headaches for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, guys, what I want to do now is switch into our community. And obviously you guys have had a long history in the Holland, West Michigan, Lakeshore area. Andrew being a third generation owner, you've got some deep roots here. And Jose has been around for many years as well. Before we continue, I'd like to give a big shout out to our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible. Lighthouse Title, Independent Bank, Josh DeVries Mortgage Lender, Koop Burr Insurance, Jose Morales, in partnership with Fremont Mutual Insurance. Thank you for your support. Check out their info in the description below. Let's dive back in. What's special to you about the Lakeshore area?
Just the community in general. Holland has always been a very tight-knit area, and it's really important for everybody here to support those around them. I mean, some of the organizations that we have here in Holland are partnerships that as an agency, we partner with, like Community Action House. And for us, it's really important to just give back to the community in times like this where it's freezing cold out right now. Making sure that we can work with organizations like that, and even if it's through giving directly, if they are organizations that we can take a look at their insurance and help them to save some money through their insurance, or make sure what they need is covered as well. All of that can help the organizations support their community as well.
Yeah. Great. Jose, I know you've been involved in, I still call it LAU because I never say the whole thing, but tell us about that. And I know you've been very involved in the Chamber of Commerce over the years.
Sure. So we brought up LAU, which is Latin America's United for Progress. It's a great nonprofit. It's always been based and focused on the Latino community here in West Michigan. And that program we've gone through many different changes as far as what they're focused on, right? So initially it was to do with immigration issues, to help people, with immigration issues, to get proper documentation, all that kind of stuff that's still important to this day, right? And then over the years, when I was involved in the organization, it changed more into education to the next generation of leaders. into the youth, into the high school kids. And they're still focusing on that part, which is very important. So the program itself, I think I've been out of the program now for a couple of years, but I believe I served a total of 10 years on the board. And it was one of those organizations where as a little kid, my parents were involved in the board. So it was kind of nice to kind of step into the next segment of leadership, the next generation. But as a young kid, my parents were involved with the Fiesta, which is held every year. This year it's changed now. Now it's kind of a week-long celebration in the summer, which is fantastic. Usually it's normal weather, which is always a good thing for them. But, you know, in the Fiesta, they used to have a queen pageant back then. We always be in the parade for tulip time with a float. And would kind of help bring up the roses to the contestants at the Civic Center. I was in the parade on the float, waving. So it went from that to being on the board of directors and just volunteering in general with the organization. So still fantastic program. Loved my years there. And excited to see the next generation take it to the next level. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done stuff with the chamber, the West Coast Chamber of Commerce I was involved with many years ago. I was able to serve on their board, executive board as well. I do more right now with the West Michigan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As an agency, we do support them as much as possible. Try to attend and sponsor events that are geared towards small businesses, entrepreneurs. That's very important to us, obviously. But at the end of the day, we just look for other things to be involved with. And for many years, I was more involved. I was on board of directors for other programs as well in the community. But I have found that as my kids get older, I've tried to focus more on the family side of things. And again, I'm still pretty young, I think, but it's nice to see the next generation of leaders in the community kind of step into these roles, serve on the boards, and volunteer with other community organizations. So again, have enjoyed my time, and I get to watch everyone else take over. As an agency, we just appreciate being in a community where, hey, at the end of the day, we may not be perfect, but this community celebrates all different cultures and backgrounds and communities. So it's exciting for us to be part of that. And again, we're always looking to be involved in more if we can. Of course, you know, time is limited, but we get offered a bunch of opportunities, and we look to see what gels with our agency the best. And that's what we're trying to be involved with.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone moves to the greater Highland Lakeshore area, I just happen to think this is a Jose question for sure. What restaurant are you sending them to?
Yeah, that is a good one. That's a good one. But, you know, it's not a clear-cut answer. I always ask, well, what kind of food, what kind of flavor, what are we looking for? I never get the same answer. At the end of the day,
You can answer it because you insure every restaurant in the Lakeshore, so you get in trouble with somebody.
Yeah, and there's many I don't insure. I'll just give you an example, right? So people always ask, hey, what are we looking for breakfast foods? I'm old school here, been in Holland forever. And the Windmill downtown is always going to be a staple stop. Even with the wait out the door and down the block, it's worth it. But again, at the end of the day, you know, DeBoer Bakery on the north side or the south side location for quick sandwiches, that's always going to be a unique stop with a phenomenal menu. And again, I'm just trying to isolate people with breakfast. Those are usually where I'm going to go, right? There is, for lunch and dinner, again, downtown Holland offers quite a variety of fare for food. So again, I'm not going to get myself in trouble by just isolating certain restaurants, but again, we have a little bit of everything here. So the breakfast seems to be the most common thing for that. And so Windmill and DeBoer for me are kind of my stops up front. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I think
Yeah.
a lot of other great restaurants too. So don't get me wrong, but you asked me where I go, that's where I suggest.
So Andrew, have you been to the new ice rink yet?
I have not. No, that's on my list. I don't ice skate, so it hasn't been quite up the priority. I normally end up on my back more than I am vertical on ice skates.
Yeah.
I've driven by a few times, and it looks just. I love the community space. I love what the city has done with Window on the Waterfront there, and what they've done to transform that area. It's
amazing.
It really encompasses what the city stands for, trying to bring people together and trying to focus on community. I think it's a phenomenal way to bring people together.
So I'm moving here from wherever. What is the one thing, this is for both of you.
Sure.
What is the one place I am telling them they have to go?
I'll be honest with you before I give you a specific location. Depends on time of year, right? If you're here in the summer, even in the winter, because I understand from a client of mine that the water, the ice build up on the lighthouse, small glaciers kind of happening, are a phenomenal view. I'm going to say we're going to Lake Michigan. We're going to the beach. In the summertime, it's amazing for those who aren't from the area. You think of a lake sometimes and you're thinking of something, I can see the other side. You're not going to see this in Lake Michigan. You probably see that. So the summer is fantastic with the beach and the water. In the wintertime, it may be cold, absolutely bundle up, but the views, again, the ice build up, the snow, and just the views. I'm not even a big beach guy, but I'm telling you, let's go Lake Michigan, check that out, because you probably haven't seen anything like that before. So
Yeah.
that's mine.
I'm a sailor, so I'm not
there you
biased at all, but the water is also my answer. I mean, Holland State Park is an incredible spot. Mount Pisgah is an incredible spot too for anybody who haven't been up there. It's a few hundred stairs, so it's not the easiest or most accessible place, but once you're up there, the view over there, you can overlook the state park in Lake Michigan. You can turn around and overlook Lake Macatawa. It's just a really unique spot that doesn't get a whole lot of foot travel. So, for those who are able to make it up there, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is awesome. You bet. Yeah. So guys, I appreciate your time today. If someone wanted to find you on social media or all the other places that we can go, how would they do that?
Yeah. So, koopburr.com is our website. We also have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So any of those sites, if people search Koop and Burr Insurance, we should pop right up.
And how do you spell that?
It is Koop and B as in boy, URR. So Koop and Burr.
Okay.
And we are at 348 South Waverly Road in Holland. So that is our physical address for the office.
So obviously look us up, give us a call, shoot us an email, stop on in the office. We've got people in the office 5 days a week. So there's always somebody here who can help. And we're happy to talk.
Yeah. Awesome.
I prefer to leave the office. So if anyone wants to meet for coffee or lunch, feel free.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a call.
Sounds good. We're due to meet up, Phil.
Well, guys, again, thanks so much. Thanks for your sponsorship. Thanks for your time today. And we look forward to everyone watching this episode on Keys to the Community. And we will talk again soon. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to Keys to the Community. Make sure you subscribe and stay connected to what's happening across West Michigan. And if real estate is on your mind, reach out. I'd love to help.